Welcome back, everybody.
Just a little respect.
Just a little bit. Welcome to the Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program. Listen, earlier in the show, I said if you can tell me what the 12 days of Christmas are, give us a call here at 254-697-6633. You get to win this American Rifleman Freedom Coin. Okay, it's still in the package. If you sing it, I don't know, we'll just applaud you, but you get this Freedom Coin. It's pretty cool. So give us a call, 254-697-6633. And I want to also say thank you to all our sponsors, Two Wheel Customs, Twin Pistol Bail Bonds, EBCO, Comfort AC and Heating, Cameron Small Engine, Liquor Depot, ANC Firearms, Copley & Dodd Krebs Law Firm, which brings us to you, Ross. How's it going, buddy? How you doing today? How you doing?
Ho, ho, ho.
You can't say that no more.
Oh, is that
That's
politically
that's
incorrect?
discriminatory towards women, so you got to say he.
Oh, yeah, we're about to get the calls now.
I had talked to you this week about something that Zoli, our legal alien, Zoltan Varga, one of my instructors, he had sent to me an article concerning red flag laws. And I looked at it and said, this is pretty interesting. So hopefully Zoli will be able to give us a call in a little bit too. But I sent it to you and we're talking about it. And you say it's kind of new here, so it's difficult to actually come up with an analysis. Why don't you tell us what you got?
Yeah. So there's a couple of states that have, not just a couple, it's a handful that's got these red flag laws. And so there's not a defined, or one that I saw, offhand this week about defining exactly what is the red flag, but it's assumed that we're talking about red flag should have popped up on this person as far as their possession and use and control of firearms.
Well, one example of that, when we were talking about it, I read about the shooting here in Texas, the school. They already had information a year prior, so that should have been a red flag. And so now what they're trying to do is utilize that term as a preemptive strike, right?
Yes, and so this would would think would be one of the red flag laws. I don't think it's the red flag laws, because the one we're going to talk about does not prevent you from actually purchasing a firearm, except for one bill that's being proposed, which I was going to ask you about. But as far as what we're talking about is the extreme risk protection orders. Okay, and so those, as far as what's been in place per state, it's all kind of new. And so you guys can go check it out. It's House Bill number 131 and Senate Bill 157 that's up on the menu for 2019 at the Texas Legislature. And the extreme risk protection orders are going to essentially be what is already in place, I feel like, for some things, and which is why I don't agree with. So I was going to come in here actually, and I kind of thought when I first read over it and I first got the summary, I thought, well, this is a good thing. They're trying to compromise, and then I slowly started thinking about all the times that I've already had to go to court with my own experiences and how many times people have lied in these detailed allegations. And then I started thinking about all the cases that we've had problem-wise, on appeal that have lost, and with evidence questions coming into play and it being very suspect or very little evidence to support the issuance, the court's approval of one of these protection orders in other contexts, like just family violence, which we already have an emergency protection order. Okay, we've talked about how many times we talk about the family law. You're going to get a protection order, a restraining order, right, in a family law case for family violence.
Can I ask a question for my personal clarification?
Right.
When you say an emergency order, is that because they may not be guilty, or they may be guilty, but because of what it's pertaining to, I can't take the chance. We've got to do an emergency order on it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly what that is. So let's say you have a couple and they get into a fight. The police show up and arrest one of the spouses because one of them's in a fight, and there's evidence to believe that one of them's got probable cause to believe that, based on evidence there on the scene, that one of them is guilty of family violence. So one of them's going to get arrested. They're going to take one downtown, and as soon as that happens, the police are going to go and fill out an application for an emergency protective order. Okay, and they're going to submit that to the JP judge. JP judge is going to sign that almost certainly, right? I mean, really. I mean, I don't get mad. Sometimes these things are baseless in the case, and he doesn't even end up getting charged, but there's still an emergency protective order in place.
I get that.
if I'm a JP, I'm not gonna sign that.
That's right. You
Yeah, I
just
mean,
can't take the chance.
because then what if they go back to the house and kill the girl, right, or guy?
It
right?
can look bad from the outside.
Right.
They can, the guy's innocent. How can they do that? But then you got to think of the other position. Here, the judge is saying getting information from honored people with a badge who's
Right.
supposed to be,
Right. I
telling the
mean, that's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. Like if you're a JP judge, I'm not saying that they don't ever turn it down, but it's just not, the system's not set up
Yeah.
to be an impartial system, in my opinion, when that's concerned. And
they
honestly,
need to
I don't blame anybody
They need
for
to
those
do
things
due
getting.
diligence, though, to make sure if it is true or not, or if it isn't true, make sure that the
And-
order's taken off.
And the police officer, if he doesn't fill out the application, everybody's going to go, why didn't you do something?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You arrested him for family violence, but you didn't go ahead and fill out the application. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's kind of a dumb scenario, and it doesn't look like anything's going to happen. So sometimes, every once in a while, they don't do the application. But so you have that. That's already in place, and those automatically restrict your right to use handguns. So it really, every order that I've seen has that in there, right? And we're always fighting to get it lifted. If it's a person that's got a bunch of weapons at the house, we're always fighting to get those lifted because they're always just in there. Those are something that is going to be automatically. And again, I don't blame anybody. It's kind of like, well, if you believe that the person is guilty of, right, this family violence and they're dangerous, obviously then you don't want this person to have a firearm, especially right now in an intense situation between, right, somebody that they're passionate about.
I can understand the intense situation, but if it's anything outside that intense situation, there needs to be a procedure.
But there's really not, except trying to hire somebody and attack the order. Okay, and so then you've already got the mental health, right, system procedure, a whole two different code sets. You've got procedures for dealing with the mentally ill, and you have procedures for a temporary ex parte order, and that means right outside the presence of the other side, right, one-on-one with the judge. And that's what I was trying to say in the family law context. I'm not trying to, and I'm not attacking anybody specific. I'm just saying that there is an opportunity for manipulation of the system, because you can have one lawyer go to the judge one-on-one and talk to the judge one-on-one without another side getting to tell their side of the story. You can get an emergency protective order issued without a hearing, right, and without anybody else on the other side to give that side of the story. Now, they're only temporary, okay, but
How long is temporary?
But we know from studies that development of bias is a lot of times based on the first opinion that they were given.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it does, and I'm not attacking police here, but there's been several studies that a lot of times police, it's not good to get favorable evidence to the end of an investigation, because by the time they may get that evidence, they would have already formed their opinion. Okay, and so it makes sense that, and it's the old trial advocacy rule. As a trial lawyer, one of the two main rules is primacy and recency, right? First and last. What somebody hears at the first of a conversation and last of a conversation are the parts that they remember. The inside, meat is always forgotten because people's attention span.
That's
So
the main rule of advertising, man. The last thing in your head needs to be my product.
primacy and recency. Okay, and so they're going to remember the first thing they heard and the last thing they heard. Okay, and so if you get that first bite at the apple, so to speak, at the judge one-on-one without the other side there, the judge is already getting this story, and if you follow up with the hearing soon enough where the judge can remember the story that you told, you a lot of times there's a chance for manipulation of the process to get the judge already swayed one way. And so, I mean, these things happen, and I'm not attacking anybody specific or lawyers specific or judges specific. I'm just saying there's these possibilities, and they do happen. And you got to think about another thing. A lot of times it irks me, right, when the state can't prove a criminal case. They don't have enough to prove a criminal case. So what they'll do is they'll bring one of these for a protective order and try to get enough evidence with a protective order, and then try to use that, okay, to strengthen a criminal investigation.
So are we swaying from or diverting from a red flag law, or are you just...
No, this is because these go into the protective order, and part of what the allegations of an ERPO and an ERPO, right, what that would be, an extreme risk protective order, part of that's going to be the allegations, have they done anything to justify issuance of a protective order, period. That doesn't mean under this section alone that they're proposing.
And what did you say they were proposing? What were the bills?
So it's a Senate Bill 157 and House Bill 131, and it's an extreme risk protection order. So is somebody at risk, okay, in immediate and present danger, right, to themselves or others, okay, to a person, bodily injury to a person, okay, including the person that they're going at, whose guns they're going after, right? Does that person pose an immediate and present threat, okay, to somebody by reason of mental illness and firearms? And it says that in one place, but when you look at how the order can be granted, right, it doesn't say that that's the only reason. Okay, it says any other reason to justify issuance of a protective order.
So,
okay, and there's got to be these findings, but
let me get this straight, just so I'm straight. You're saying some of this is good, however, because the other parts that aren't bad make
it's
the whole
overbroad.
thing.
I feel like it's overbroad, and it doesn't go to the heart of the issue. I think what we need to focus on more is there a mental illness? Because there's no reason to try to include the family violence stuff in here.
What do you think would be fair to utilize as saying somebody's mentally ill? Where would you go to get that information to say, I've got facts or I've got documentation to prove this, as compared to just saying an emergency protective order because we think it?
I think there needs to be like a clear and convincing standard. Yeah, and I think...
So there is not one?
No, not on all this stuff. Okay? And so... it doesn't go to the heart either. It basically leaves the applications to bring in any allegation whatsoever, anything relevant at all, anything at all relevant, right, to posing a threat. Right? And I get that, I understand, but you got to realize. And if somebody said, "Well, what's wrong with that?" I think that's good. Well, we already have procedures in place. If somebody is violent in a domestic household setting, there's already the emergency protective order procedures in place for that.
So are these red flags being proposed out of emotional fear, or is there, in your opinion, any type of...
That's what I said. I'm not going to attack it on that. I don't know what their intent was. I didn't go back. And like I said, they haven't been on the books long enough for them to give a house analysis. Mm-hmm. So they're gonna do some research. And after they do some research, take some polls, talk about it, argue back and forth, they're gonna put up on the legislature. It takes the legislature online. You can go look at it. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. They're going to do an analysis, a bill analysis, okay? And they'll summarize it too, and they'll tell you, right, the pros and cons of it, and the naysayers, and the ones that are pushing for it, and then they'll tell you about the ones in the middle, and they'll tell you about what the general consensus was among the people in the polls that they did. And I'm not saying those are ever skewed. That obviously, right, you have politics involved, so and maybe you have one party that has more researchers in this area than another party, so maybe it gets skewed. But generally speaking, they try to do a pretty good job about summarizing this stuff for everybody. And so we can go on there and we can see then what the intent was. My point is that I think right now it's too broad. So my point in all that is I don't want to attack anybody for having a malicious intent with doing this or out of fear or some kind of wrong politics. I just think that it needs to be narrowed down if this is what they want to do.
I think if it's not, it ends up being a slippery slope. Because
Exactly. That's the problem with these.
that's why people in the gun world are so adamant about not giving up any rights, because although it may sound like common sense, you apply that little bit of leeway and then people want to go and continue it on, and it chips away at your Second Amendment one piece after the other. A perfect example would be, and I'll talk about this later, is the ban on bump stocks. Okay? Bump stock, piece of plastic out there, a law-abiding citizen isn't going to do anything crazy with it. Yet, because of a couple or a few, it's now a banned item. Okay, so what's next? See where it goes? Although I personally, big deal, I could care less about a bump stock. It's no big thing to me. But it doesn't matter. There's other people who it is a big thing to, and it's a right. And is it being chipped away on that banana peel like these red flag laws are going to start doing?
That's what I say. So government is a huge machine, and it works slow, but it's constant.
It grinds.
It's a grinder. It just constantly takes a little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit, and we don't see it coming all at one time.
What baffles
right?
me when you say that is you get this impression that government is a machine, a physical machine, the way you make it sound. But it's us, it's people who get elected there. What is their mental thought process to get us in this position where it turns government into a grinder? I don't get it, man. Don't people see that when they're in office, it's going to come back on them too?
But you got to remember, some of these things don't show themselves for 50 to 100 years. I mean, we talked about the government being the necessary evil, okay? Because its job is to restrict, right, society. That's its job, is to govern. When you're governing, you're limiting and you're restricting. But
Actually,
in
in
order
this
for
country, it should be to protect our liberties to be free. That's how limited this government should be to us.
a lot of times, though, protection, like we said, comes at the price of liberty. Okay, so we have to give up liberty in order to be protected and give security.
Not this.
I understand. So that's my point. Is that's where the trade off is sometimes, and that's why as Americans we don't like to make that.
Ladies and
trade-off.
gentlemen, you got that scale for attorneys, the legal scale. Okay.
Right.
I use that scale in my head all the time. When it comes up to a situation where it may sound like a good idea to do something, I put it on the scale and I say, does it chip away at the pillars of our Constitution and Bill of Rights? And if it does, I don't care. Even if it does jeopardize me, too, on the street with risk, you know what I do? I do what it takes to be more prepared and secure instead of crying, whining, sitting under pillows waiting for a 911 call to come and help me, okay? Take charge of your life. Stop chipping away the thing that gives you the ability to have your freedoms here. Okay, I'm done.
And I mean that's the problem. I think right now this is really broad, and there's already things in place to protect some of the things that they're trying to include in this. And so when you include them in this one too, it makes it ambiguous in my opinion, because it makes it seem like you can include whatever kind of conduct at all, whatever you want to. And if it's in here as something that is a valid allegation, the judge is going to feel like, oh, well, that has weight. That has weight to it. And so when you're reading some of those articles, I think some of the articles you may read about this in Texas, even the text articles, I think they're a little strongly worded. You know, I'm not saying that they exaggerate, but they're putting on and making this probably look really bad, and that's because they're seeing what could happen in some of these instances, right? There could be very little proof. And so there's going to be some probably talk about, why are you considering my purchase of recent purchase of firearms as evidence of why? This is, so I guess I should hit upon this point. One of the allegations that is actually in here specified for the judge to consider is the recent acquisition or purchase, right, of firearms. And you're thinking, so I go and buy a weapon, like, and you're going to consider that against me? Mm-hmm. That's something for you to consider, to go against me on this, just because I purchased a firearm? And I get it. Like, what if somebody's planning an attack? Okay, yes, the recent acquisition of a large amount of weapons, right, or explosives, right, would be evidence that they're planning that attack.
I know, but the way it should be. The way it should be is, okay, if you got resources that can tell you that somebody's buying a whole bunch of guns at one time and it raises a flag, okay, do your homework and check on it, but do not do anything to chip away. It's like you just got to wait till it happens. That's what I'm saying. You cannot protect yourself from every problem. So you just got to live. And what did Benjamin Franklin say? He goes, if you want liberty at the cost of security, you're going to have neither.
Right, exactly.
So screw the security. I'll do it myself. Okay. Yeah. People chipping away at it, it's not good. Now I got a question for you. I want an opinion. I see this a lot. I know a bunch of people who are very educated. Okay, and I said that way on purpose. Very educated, high levels of education, and they seem to live in a bubble, a world that is non-reality, because they're just successful in what they do. They're able to get the top things in life, the whole works. They don't have to associate with the trials and tribulations of life. And I get this impression they have a skewed view of how it really is. And so they want to apply their bubble reality to the real reality. And that, when you're saying a couple things, how a judge makes a decision, do you feel that may be the case sometimes? The judge is in a bubble of higher excellence and socio-economical status.
Well, that's why we have elections, right? And so, in theory, right, we're supposed to vote for a judge who can be fair and who we think is going to be the best impartial representative for our populace, right? And so, we should take that in consideration in an election. And so, if we don't elect the right person, that's nobody's fault but our own. Okay, but from a standpoint, yes, there's been a lot of studies done to show. You're telling us that somebody who's in, the upper middle bracket to the upper bracket of income, and who's probably had a family that's been in that bracket, and is probably not the only person to ever go to college in their family.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you're taking part of the upper echelon of society, right, to judge the lower, peasantry, right, portions of society. Yes, there's been a lot of commentators on that point from the beginning of this country, right? How can a judge be able to understand a circumstance that they've never had to face? But honestly, a lot of judges come from all backgrounds, and it goes back to who we elect. And you can't look at it that way because there's no better way to do it. In a government that's one such as this, we're gonna just have to take some sacrifices.
You ever see that movie, The Blind Side?
Yes.
That's a perfect illustration right there. You got Michael Orr, and the Orr family is a higher status family, doing their own thing. And Michael Orr here's a great football player, but he's barely making it here. And they think their world's pretty, and all of a sudden there's a connection between the family and Michael Orr, and they realize, oh my gosh, there's another side of the world out there. So if you can get a blend of everything, I think
there's definitely an underground culture that I didn't even know existed till I became an attorney.
Specify.
Oh, there's just all kinds of things that we don't know that goes on. It just, if you're not involved in the legal community, I go back to when Rick Dodd was in here when we spoke about, in his early days and doing CPS court. And as I said, anybody who's never been to a CPS court, you need to just go. You need to go one time. And like I say, I think they used to do them on Fridays, every Friday and Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. Now I don't know the schedule.
CPS, Child Protective Services.
But you can always, Child Protective Services. You need to go to court and just see the stories that come before, and here in my own county, Judge Youngblood. And there's just sometimes I'm like, man, I don't want his job.
How do people get to those positions?
Because sometimes
I'm not talking about the judge. I'm talking about families coming to court. How things can get so screwed up, right?
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You got moms drugged out, dads nowhere to be found, or in jail somewhere a long distance away. There's really nobody that's better off from a grandparent or great grandparent standpoint, and there's really just nowhere to put the kids at. But at the same time, maybe there's siblings and the foster parents that you got them with, they already got too many kids, so they can't take all the kids, and we got to separate the siblings. And before you know it, you got 3 kids in 3 different counties.
And we're talking about all these different laws and stuff, and you just give it this illustration. And people, I'm saying to myself, if you, the public out there, had the ability to go to somebody and say, that was wrong what you just did, young man, and scold them without fear of getting in trouble and arrested, we might have some better people out there. But you got all these laws and protections and securities and safeties now that everybody's scared to do anything. So you're exemplifying, is that the right word? You're magnifying the problem that exists already when hopefully we could have corrected it or subdued it by actually interacting with it at the moment.
And I think some of the people that in the anti-red flag camp, right, are pushing. They're saying that, hey, another thing is this person hadn't been charged with a crime. This person is not have been found by any specialist board to be have a mental defect, right? And all you're going on is a sworn affidavit of some family member who may be in the midst of a family law case trying to take advantage. And so all of a sudden the police show up at their house, and the police are going to have their guns drawn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you say, no, we're not. Some police say, no, that's not how we would approach. I'm telling you that if there's an extreme risk protection order granted on a temporary basis,
I don't blame him at all.
The cops are going to go thinking there's going to be a problem, and then the guy's going to be, upset.
Mm-hmm. I think we got. Is that Zoe? You got a call on the line. Is that for me? Nope. Okay.
But the person's going to be upset, right? Because they don't have any notice that this is coming, right? They don't have any notice, and the police just showing up. Give us your guns. Give us your property.
You got a caller.
Okay, we got a call on the line. Put them on and let's see who we got. All right, everybody. If you want to call in as well, the number's 254-697-6633. You're on the air. Who we got? Hello. One more time. Hey, Zoli, is that you?
Yep.
All right, buddy. What you got, man? Thanks for the topic. It's going pretty good. What's your insight on it?
Yeah, I'm listening. I just want to tell my side of the argument. the article I sent you before
Yes.
about the red flag law and how it is carried out, what ended up with the guy's death, police technically gunned him down, is there wasn't any hearing, wasn't any history of mental illness or violence or anything. It was an argument between neighbors, and the neighbor filed out this concern that this guy is possibly dangerous and please get their guns. And I think that this was the second case when technically a law-abiding citizen, because after the shooting, the police, as the family and the sister said, is like, never did anything wrong. No, he's not violent.
That's what we were.
That.
I want to make clear that that story was not from a law here in Texas, but it was illustrating exactly the point I was just making. You've got this person has never been found to have a mental defect or problem that was a threat to anybody. This person has not been convicted of a crime. This person has not been charged, right, for any kind of assault or incident that would have happened recently, right? And all of a sudden the police show up, right, trying to execute on this order and say, give us your guns. Well, this person's, it automatically escalates, right, tensions, and they don't understand, and you're having the cops already drawn. Dude, why are you got a gun drawn? What is your problem? And then that escalates, and all of a sudden
the cops' mental thought process,
right, and so you have this situation where the cops think, oh, this person is really a threat, right, and so I need to protect myself, okay, and that's why the guy got gunned down in that scenario is part of it, and I think they're trying in Texas, they're trying to make it look like they've put a restriction, because it would appear as though the only people who could apply for an order would be a family member that's in your household, okay, a family member or somebody in your household, okay, or a prosecuting attorney. But then it says the prosecuting attorney can bring it, right, if it was made at the request of a peace officer. Well, again, we go back to all it takes is for the neighbor to make an allegation to the peace officer that the person is crazy, and the police officer go to the district attorney and say, hey, this person's crazy, we need to go get their guns. Okay, and so a lot of it, I think, is going to depend on, right, the political stance of the different prosecutors across the counties, right, how this will be enforced. If you've got a very conservative, right, probably long-standing district attorney in a county, they're probably not as much, right, a risk as, say, a really, liberal DA in a liberal county that, right, is an anti-gun, in the anti-gun camp, that is going to be trying to enforce this law just from that ideology, not because there was really a threat.
Hey, Zoli, cover your mic. The wind's hitting it. Okay. Any other comment on it, Zoli? Because I got about 2 minutes here before I got to cut it out.
No, not.
Okay.
I don't have anything else.
All right. Well, I appreciate you sending us the topic, and it's going pretty good here. So I'm going to let you go, and we'll finish up. Ross, let's just start wrapping it up here with any other thoughts that you may have on it.
No, I think that I think we need to revisit this in a few months after there's been time to really debate this thing, and I don't see this passing right now, but who knows? I mean, everything's scary when you're talking about a bill being launched into the Democratic Republican process, because you give and take. It's a quid pro quo. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, like, okay, if you want mine to pass, you got to vote for mine, and so. It's always a scary thought. I don't think it's going to pass now, but I'd like to see some of the limitations that are put on this in this process as we go along. All right. Other than that, Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you, Ross. I hope you have a Merry Christmas too, and
Yeah.
Happy New Year. But I'll be seeing you before the New Year's. Why don't you tell everybody how they get a hold of you?
105 East Main Street here in Cameron. That's the primary office location. If you want to schedule an appointment, you can give us a call at 254-605-4140. That's 254-605-4140. If you got questions about the show, man, Eva, we love talking about things and new topics. People give us new topics for the show all the time. Email me at benton@watson.legal. That's benton@watson.legal. Just make sure you leave your phone number. I mean, and Rick Dodd, thank you for sponsoring the show, having me on when you can't be here during the holidays.
Right.
And
this segment is not possible. This segment, as any other segment, is not possible without our sponsors, Rick Dodd, Coppolino Dodd, Krebs Law Firm, for this one. We thank them, and all the other sponsors as well too. So, be sure if you got some challenges to either call Rick or Ross here. They can square you away. Ross, man, I got so many topics that hit me, and I always forget to call you or text you what they are, and they could expand upon so many different things. I got to start writing this stuff down. I see something in the news, and I ask a question. I read something in the paper, I ask a question. Somebody makes a comment, or Zoli sends some information. I have questions. There's so many questions. And sooner or later, it rolls down to guns, and that's what that's what this segment's all about. It's about laws, guns, the whole works. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. When we come back on the other side, we'll have the delicious Janae Goodman talking about Christmas leftovers. See you in a little bit.